You think you know how America opened China? Think again. In this video, you'll see the untold, ruthless chess match where Mao took control one psychological move at a time, turning America's great diplomatic triumph into a humiliating defeat. Each twist ups the stakes, and the final reveal will shatter what you thought you knew about US-China history. Don't blink! February 1972. Nixon's entourage touches down in Beijing, ready for history's most celebrated handshake. America expects to meet the almighty Mao, the Red Emperor himself. But what do they get? An ailing, almost ghostly old man, so sick he'd practically checked into the afterlife 9 days earlier. Chinese doctors whisper he shouldn't meet anyone. Suddenly, surprise. As if rising from the grave, Mao insists on a summit just hours after their plane lands. The Americans, thinking they're witnessing heroic stamina, are actually seeing a masterclass in psychological warfare. Mao, yes, he, barely able to sit upright, radiates ethereal energy, pitching himself as a dying sage desperate for peace. But let's be honest. This was the world's oldest trick. By showing mortal weakness, Mao baits his guests, gains their pity, and sets the negotiation tempo. The brilliance? Kissinger, famed for seeing through everyone, never realizes he's the one being played. They called Mao a madman, but when Kissinger sat across from him in that Beijing meeting room, he met something far more dangerous. A philosopher gone full supervillain. Nixon tried to talk business, trade, troops, the works, but Mao just waved a hand and talked about doing philosophy. Ancient Chinese sayings, riddles with no answers, and 10,000-year-old war strategies flew across the table. No memos, no policy talk, just cosmic riddles from a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a fever dream. While the Americans floundered, scrambling to decipher cryptic wisdom from the East, Mao sat back, serenely watching them sweat. He wasn't there to close deals. He was administering an entrance exam. Could the best minds of the West even keep up? Bottom line, Kissinger thought he'd entered a negotiation. Instead, he stumbled blindfolded into Mao's intellectual funhouse and never realized he'd already started losing. 1973. Mao Zedong didn't just negotiate. He fired off bizarre, off-color zingers, blending stand-up comedy with strategic menace. Mid-talk, he famously offered Kissinger 10 million Chinese women, tossing it out like a coupon nobody wanted. Was it a joke? A threat? Pure absurdity? That's the brilliance. Mao was poking, prodding, seeing just how far the U.S. would go to save face for a deal. As Nixon's diplomats squirmed and grinned through clenched teeth, Mao pushed harder, transforming Cold War talks into an improv roast fit for late-night TV. He knew his routine: awkward silences, forced laughs, and the West's desperate need to look unflappable would have the Americans tap dancing for his approval. And the punchline? While Kissinger fancied himself a political heavyweight, he was really just Mao's straight man, set up, blindsided, and left holding the world's weirdest diplomatic punch card. While Washington thought it was racing against Moscow, Mao was busy staging his own countdown drama, with himself as the ticking bomb. Every meeting, he dropped lines like, "I'll soon meet God," or "My days are numbered." At first, Kissinger and the Americans took the bait, sweating over the idea that history's window was closing. Better cave now, before the grand old dragon disappears forever. So suddenly, every handshake became the last chance for peace. Every vague promise a once-in-a-lifetime offer. Mao would cough, wheeze, scribble shaky notes, then suddenly flash a sly grin. Was he dying or just ramping up the pressure? And here's the kicker. While the diplomats fell over themselves to please a dying man, Mao was alive and kicking, milking every cough for concessions. Turns out, nothing sells desperation like a world leader who knows how to play dead. Picture Kissinger's team believing they're inching toward trust with Mao, only to have the Chinese leader up the ante, paranoid style. Suddenly, Mao's eyes narrow. He asks, point blank, "How do I know you won't let the Soviets attack us while you watch from the sidelines?" The room freezes. Is this a negotiation or an inquisition? The Americans stumble over reassurances, promising loyalty and fearing their every word might spark disaster. Meanwhile, Mao spins darker scenarios. China left isolated while Russia invades, America swooping only when the dust settles. Each word is measured, every silence loaded, a masterclass in high-stakes mental chess. The pressure is brutal. Talks stall, not over tariffs or treaties, but because trust has become a battlefield. Here's the twist. While Kissinger tries to prove America's friendship, Mao milks every ounce of suspicion for concessions. Each wild accusation doesn't just destabilize, it puts Mao firmly in control. In Mao's game, paranoia isn't a weakness. It's the sharpest weapon in the room. October 1973. Kissinger steps into Beijing, ready for classic communist bluster. Instead, Mao coolly opens with, "Frankly, I don't even like your Communist Party, or ours. Why throw that curveball?" Instantly, the room tilts. Mao is mixing mockery and praise, singling out America's right wing while rolling his eyes at liberals and communists alike. This isn't offhand banter. It's precision work, meant to nudge American pride just as the U.S. is staggering under Watergate and national self-doubt. The diplomats try their best poker faces, but Mao keeps slipping in ironies and ideological jabs, hammering that message home. Suddenly, real negotiation is off the table. American confidence unravels while Mao sets the tempo and terms. With a few sharp words, Mao seizes control. He isn't just talking politics, he's reshaping the room, forcing Kissinger to adapt to his rules and his psychological terrain. Spring 1975. The ice between delegations is thick. As talks cool, Kissinger feels a shift. Gone is the respectful rivalry, replaced by a blunt detachment. Mao, once enigmatic, now strips away any pretense, openly declaring that China can't rely on the U.S., and making it clear that America's influence is waning. In his later reflections, Kissinger described an uneasy realization settling in. The familiar ground of strategic dialogue crumbled, replaced by the raw discomfort of diminished stature. He sensed the window of mutual respect closing, replaced with a keen awareness of having been outmaneuvered. The warmth, the sense of partnership he once believed possible, gave way to something far colder. A recognition that, in Mao's eyes, he and America had been sized up and relegated to the sidelines. For Kissinger, the sting didn't come from overt insults, but from the unmistakable feeling of being dismissed by a leader who, with icy precision, had seized control of both the narrative and the future. Here's how it all adds up. By the end of the 1970s, Mao had pulled off something incredible. He got global recognition for China, forced America to make huge concessions on Taiwan, and made the world's top superpower come knocking at his door. Every meeting, every joke, every psychological trap was designed to shift power eastward. And it worked. Kissinger, who once thought he was guiding history, later admitted that Mao was the most dangerous, unpredictable leader he'd ever met. He realized, too late, that Mao hadn't just opened China to America. He'd flipped the script, making the U.S. a guest in his house, playing by his rules. In the end, Mao got it all: recognition, security, the image of strength, and, crucially, the upper hand in every negotiation. As Kissinger looked back, he saw how masterfully Mao used weakness as power, suspicion as leverage, and every talk as a stage for Chinese dominance. The legacy? Mao changed the global game, and America spent decades dealing with that aftershock.